As he slowly sags down with more weight on the nails in the wrists, excruciating pain shoots along the fingers and up the arms to explode in the brain. The nails in the wrists are putting pressure on the median nerves. As he pushes himself upward to avoid this stretching torment, he places his full weight on the nail through his feet. Again there is a searing agony of the nail tearing through the nerves between the metatarsal bones of the feet. At this point, as the arms fatigue, great waves of cramps sweep over the muscles, knotting them in deep, relentless, throbbing pain. With these cramps comes the inability to push himself upward. Hanging by his arms, the pectoral muscles are paralyzed, and the intercostal muscles are unable to act. Air can be drawn into the lungs, but cannot be exhaled. Jesus fights to raise himself in order to get even one short breath. Finally, carbon dioxide builds up in the lungs and in the bloodstream, and the cramps partially subside. Spasmodically, he is able to push himself upward to exhale and bring in the life-giving oxygen. It was undoubtedly during these periods that he uttered the 7 short sentences recorded. The first, looking down at the Roman soldiers throwing dice for his seamless garment.
Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
The second, to the penitent thief.
Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise.
The third, looking down at the terrified, grief-stricken adolescent John, the beloved apostle, he said,
Behold thy mother.
Then, looking to his mother Mary,
Woman, behold thy son.
The fourth cry is from the beginning of the 22nd Psalm.
My God, why hast thou forsaken me?
Hours of limitless pain, cycles of twisting, joint-rending cramps, intermittent, partial asphyxiation, searing pain where tissue is torn from his lacerated back as he moves up and down against the rough timber. Then another agony begins, a terrible crushing pain deep in the chest as the pericardium slowly fills with serum and begins to compress the heart. One remembers again the 22nd Psalm, the 14th verse. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted in the midst of my bowels. It is now almost over. The loss of tissue fluids has reached a critical level. The compressed heart is struggling to pump heavy, thick, sluggish blood into the tissue. The tortured lungs are making a frantic effort to gasp in small gulps of air. The markedly dehydrated tissues send their flood of stimuli to the brain. Jesus gasps his fifth cry.
I thirst.
One remembers another verse from the prophetic 22nd Psalm. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaveth to my jaws. And thou hast brought me into the dust of death. A sponge soaked in Pasca, the cheap sour wine which is the staple drink of the Roman legionnaires, is lifted to his lips. He apparently doesn't take any of the liquid. The body of Jesus is now in extremes, and he can feel the chill of death creeping through his tissues. The realization brings out his sixth words, possibly little more than a tortured whisper.
It is finished.
His mission of atonement has completed. Finally, he can now allow his body to die. With one last surge of strength, he once again presses his torn feet against the nail, straightens his legs, takes a deep breath, and utters his seventh and last cry.
Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit.
The rest you know. In order that the Sabbath not be profaned, the Jews asked that the condemned men be dispatched and removed from the crosses. The common method of ending a crucifixion was by crurifracture, the breaking of the bones of the legs. This prevented the victim from pushing himself upward. Thus the tension could not be relieved from the muscles of the chest, and rapid suffocation occurred. The legs of the two thieves were broken. But when the soldiers came to Jesus, they saw that this was unnecessary. Apparently, to make doubly sure of death, the legionnaire drove his lance through the fifth interspace between the ribs, upward through the pericardium and into the heart. The 34th verse of the 19th chapter of the Gospel according to St. John reports, "And immediately there came out blood and water." That is, there was an escape of water fluid from the sac surrounding the heart, giving a post-mortem evidence that our Lord died, not the usual crucifixion death by suffocation, but of heart failure, a broken heart, due to shock and constriction of the heart by fluid in the pericardium. Thus we have had our glimpse, including the medical evidence, of that epitome of evil which man has exhibited toward man and toward God. It has been a terrible sight, and more than enough to leave us despondent and depressed. How grateful we can be that we have the great sequel in the infinite mercy of God toward man. At once, the miracle of the atonement, at one meant, and the expectation of the triumphant resurrection.
Tremble.